Hey everybody, it's V here. I just wanted to do this video today and talk about what happened to me last night. Very good friend of mine who believes in God, and we debate. We debate all the time about our stance and about what is important to us and about more than anything, we just debate about the relevance of the subjective experience. Which, by the way, I've never claimed to think that the subjective experience is irrelevant. The only thing I've ever said about this subjective experience is that it limits your ability to view things in an objective manner, but not that the subjective experience is irrelevant, unimportant, not meaningful. Quite the contrary. I like to use the word spiritual to talk about the meaning that I associate with the subjective experience because I'm not really sure what other word to use. I could use the word beautiful, but it's more than that. It's more than that. So, for me, when I call myself spiritual, it is because what's spiritual to me is my interactions with other beings. My main goal in developing myself to become a better person or what have you is developing my capacity for love, my capacity for understanding, my capacity for tolerance, and to internalize the external realities that I perceive in a way that is going to be least detrimental for me and least detrimental for the people that I interact with. I think that affecting others is a spiritual experience for me. And no, I don't believe in God, and I don't think that you need to believe in God to be a spiritual person. But for me, the ability to see beauty in even ugly things and in painful things is a spiritual experience. To be able to extract meaning from a mundane occurrence, to be able to extract beauty from a mundane occurrence, to be able to describe things in a beautiful manner that might just be regular to the next person. Those things are spiritual to me. And it is where I get the most fulfillment in my life, and it's really the purpose of my life to me is to interact with other people in a loving and to get as close to pure love as I can. Obviously, I'm not there yet, but to me, the road is a spiritual road to learn how to love in a pure manner, in an unconditional manner, to be able to put myself aside in the name of love, to be able to be excruciatingly hurt and still find beauty in the moment. That's spiritual to me. We were talking last night, and I just thought we were talking just to talk, just to see where each other was coming from. To like, for me, my purpose of speaking to her wasn't to try to change her mind. It wasn't to try to get her to not believe in God. I actually think that her approach to the metaphysical is probably just about as scientific as you can get with regard to the spiritual realm. Really, my purpose for speaking to her was just to try to understand where she was coming from and to increase my capacity for love and to increase my capacity for tolerance and understanding these things that are my path to personal and spiritual development, because I do value a differing perspective, not simply for the sake of debate, but for the sake of awareness, to know that I am not the only person that feels like this, just like you're not the only person who feels like this. So maybe if I can understand better where you're coming from, I can relate to the other person who feels like you in a better way. Maybe if you can illuminate for me some issues that I may be naive to, I might be ignoring. I'm never unwilling to learn. I'm never unwilling to feel, and I'm never unwilling to see things from a different perspective. The only thing, in my opinion, that really differs between me and my friend are our standards of evidence. What is evidence for her will probably never be evidence for me. And it is because I think that I need to be very specific about what I call evidence. My number one fear in a belief of God is that I could believe in God and never have anything to show for it but my belief and the delusions that I've surrounded myself with. She very heavily emphasizes the importance of synchronicity and of coincidences. And she believes that those types of things are evidence of a divine intervention, of a divine manifestation. For homework, she asked me to practice my ability to manifest things in a supernatural manner and to be aware of the synchronicities and of the coincidences that surround me on a day-to-day basis. And my problem with that is that it's like getting a new car. You know, before you got this car, you never noticed really how many people drive around in Toyota Corollas, because why would you, you know? But now you have this car, and all of a sudden you're seeing Toyota Corollas every fucking where you look. And it doesn't mean that because you're driving a Toyota Corolla, more people are driving Toyota Corollas. It just means that now you're noticing what was already there, what was already happening. And it really doesn't say anything about your ability to manifest a thing. And that's just where I'm at with it. And I think the way that she views me now that we've talked, because she didn't really know that that I was an atheist before. And it doesn't matter to her if I call myself an agnostic atheist or an atheist. She just feels that I am disconnected from God. And not to mention, she doesn't even really understand how someone like me could exist. A black woman, an eccentric black woman who's intelligent, who doesn't believe, who could go so far as to say, I don't believe in there being supernatural things. I believe that given enough time, everything could probably be explained by natural causes. And I'm not going to say I know that to be true. I'm just saying that that's what I think is true. She actually doesn't believe in the possibility of there not being a God, which I have no problem saying that I can acknowledge the possibility of there being a God. I have no problem saying that at all. I know a lot of atheists do, but I just don't. I just don't have a problem saying that because my atheism is coming from a place of ignorance. The conversation got deep, you know what I mean? We started talking about religious faith versus scientific faith, and I was trying to explain to her that I do not have faith in any scientific law, that I have a trust in the logic behind the rules of science, and that the logic of those rules are ultimately more important than the law itself. If the rules were to disprove the law of gravity, I would no longer believe in the law of gravity because I believe that those rules come from such a place of logic that the evidence that arises when you apply those rules is good evidence. And if there is better evidence to suggest that the law of gravity is falsified, then that's where I'm going to go with it. To me, that's the beauty of science. You are never working backwards from a place of certainty. And to me, that's really what a belief in God is. You're working backwards from a place of certainty. You already know that there's a God, so now you're working backwards. And so a whole shitload of things could be evidence for God. But for me, I'm saying I can't say that I do believe in any gods, and even though can't say that I know there to not be one, I am not comfortable working backwards that way. I would rather sit with my ignorance and work forward to an explanation from that state of ignorance, rather than claiming a certainty and then working backwards to support my certainty. And I've already explained in my previous videos why I'm not comfortable with doing that. So I was having the conversation purely, A, because I enjoy speaking to her, B, because I enjoy a good debate, and C, to increase my capacity for love, tolerance, and understanding. And it was clear to me halfway through the conversation that her reason, really, for uh, having the conversation with me was to determine whether or not she was going to be able to continue being my friend based on the things I was saying. She doesn't really know how we're going to be able to unify with such differing perspectives. And I was hurt by that. My feelings were hurt by that because this is a person who I feel like I really have a lot of common ground with, as far as the things that we think are problematic in the world, the things that we take issue to. From my perspective, I have always felt that as long as your reasoning is good, we can be fighting for the same thing. We can be soldiers in the same battle using different weapons. And I feel like as long as my heart is in the right place, where my main objective is to love better and to understand people better and to decrease those things inside of me that are preventing me from developing in those ways, then I'm always going to have common ground with her. Because essentially, although she is using the spiritual method to address things going on in the world, I would argue that I'm also using the spiritual method. I just don't believe in God. By the end of the conversation, I just really felt like she was trying to persuade me to believe in God when that's not what I was trying to do with her at all. She ended the conversation by saying that she feels like there's still hope for me. And it just hurts my feelings. Like the conversation got deeper than that. Like when I was asking her, you know, why should I have to work any harder than somebody who just believes in God? To me, it's a matter of personality. I can choose to internalize the world in a certain way. Or maybe I can't choose. Maybe it's just me. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm making certain choices, but maybe for whatever predispositions I have, I'm just more likely to see the world this way than that way. So why should I have to work any harder than somebody who it's easy to believe for, that it just comes to them, like they just believe, because that's how I feel. I just don't believe. And in the same way somebody can be like, well, how is that possible? I could say, how is it possible that you do? That's not what I'm about. I don't want to ask anybody, how is it possible that you believe in God? If you have reasons and those reasons are good enough for you, I take no issue to that. My only issue, period, is when your life stance makes you deal with somebody else in a less than tolerant and a less than loving manner. And everybody has to check that within themselves. You know what I mean? We all have subjective biases that we're not even really aware of until somebody else makes us aware of it. That they say something to us like, wow, that was kind of bigoted of you. And you're like, oh, maybe it was, and we all have these biases that we may or may not even know that we're operating from. And I think as long as you are constantly working to ameliorate those things within yourself, that you're on the right path. I think as long as you are able to see things outside of self-righteousness, as long as you are able to care about everyone else other than yourself, that you're doing the right thing. And to me, it doesn't matter if you believe in God or not. All that matters is whether or not you're able to love your neighbor, whether or not you're able to be tolerant of another perspective. Because at the end of the day, we're all going to have differing views and we're all going to have differing perspectives. And I feel like you can still be on my team. Maybe we just don't talk about God. You know what I mean? Or maybe that when you're talking about God, that I'm looking at it in a different way. And maybe it's still meaningful to me. Maybe it just doesn't mean the same thing to me as it means to you. But as long as I'm still interested in making this world a better place for everybody, then what's so wrong? What's so offensive? That's all.